Well, good afternoon.
Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is everybody awake here? Here we go. Again. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Gay, and I will be your board chair today. We'll talk a little bit about what this process is going to look like going forward. Honored to be here with you. Honored the staff asked me to kind of kick off the meeting. And got a lot of great things to talk about today. But I would like to give a little bit of time to kind of explain a little bit of the process. But we thought first it would be good that the board could introduce themselves. So if we could maybe go around the room with Mr. Dennis and introduce ourselves.
Good afternoon, I'm Lawrence Dennis. I need to say anything else?
Please don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to be here, Connie Hodges.
Good afternoon, everyone. Austin Tranquil.
Good afternoon, Martha Oliver.
Reese Wilson, Office of General Counsel. Good afternoon, everyone. Morris Elliott, Assistant Chief Community Engagement, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
Diana Johnson, Director of Juvenile Court at Public Defender's Office. I guess it would have come to me to say more. Good afternoon, I'm Cynthia Nixon. I'm glad to be here with you, and I am a former employee of JCC and KHA, so it's really good to be back. I left in January of 2020, so not so long ago, so it's good to be back.
Kevin Gay.
Hi, Sarah Lynn Grass with Kids Hope Alliance.
And Kenneth Garrity with Kids Hope Alliance.
And as you'll notice, the board members, that a part of the ordinance that was written back when the KHA was rolled out in 2018, that I think has just been really powerful for the organization and for the board. We've got community liaisons that represent a lot of the important partnerships that we have in the city. We have the Duval County Public Schools has been represented. Dana Prisoner has typically been a representative here. We've had the public defender, the attorney's office, Chief Morris, the sheriff's office, like I said, the state attorney's office. So we've had the collaboration with the ordinance to have all of the important partners at the table together. And so we thought it would be really nice, and we do this a lot at the board meetings, to begin the board meeting, this new board meeting with all of our new board members with a wonderful little surprise for you. It's going to be a performance by one of our great partners here. Is going to come forward, and they're the students that are in the after school program JAMS, and we're going to have an opportunity to do them perform. So if they would come forward now.
Clearly not one of the students. I won't be doing any tap dance or anything like that. I just wanted to kind of set things up for you. We're at Jacksonville Arts and Music School, an out-of-school time program, creative youth development program, with a mission to empower the creative leaders of tomorrow. We do that using arts as a conduit to foster intellectual and interpersonal and technical aptitude or leadership skills. It is our honor and our privilege to be here today. You can find out more about us. We have put some brochures for the new board members, also a video card, and most importantly, a challenge coin that is often used by military personnel, myself being a prior service veteran, to signify camaraderie and togetherness and hope. Today, we present that coin to you all as a way to say thank you for accepting the challenge. To build it right in our community. We have our saying, we say, build it and they will come, build it right and they will stay. Perception precedes reality and they will treat it like they see it. So keep moving forward by doing the next right thing. So we hope that you'll continue to do that as new board members and help all of our organizations to thrive in the community.
Well, hello, my name is Aviana Singh. I've been going to JAM since it opened, so since the 5th grade. I've been in the film program since it's been awarded to us. And then we just recently got the drama program, which I go to school for at Douglas Anderson Performance Theater. So I've really been enjoying that program that we had. JAMS has just been a really big help to me in my life. When I look around at my peers and I see the growth and development and how they've grown through their life, I look at them and I'm just like, wow,
There's a striking contrast between the way I'm able to network and develop connections with other people in comparison to a lot of my other peers, and I just have Jams to thank for that in so many ways. So yeah.
Okay. Hello, my name is Charity Hunt. I have been going to JAMS for about 3 years now, and JAMS has just simply helped me become a better leader. Throughout the One Leader competition and throughout the program Artworks, which is used for our high schoolers, it really helped me grow and be able to, like Avion said, network and just direct all of my energy and everything that I want to say in a nice professional manner. So, yeah.
So I'll be doing 2 contrasting monologues for you today. The first one is from The Piano Lesson by August Wilson, and the second one is from Gillian's Pursuit of Romance and Happiness by Deborah Oswald. You try to tell me a woman can't be nothing without a man? But you all right, huh? You can just walk out of here without a woman, and still be a man. That's all right. Ain't nobody gonna ask you, hey, who you got to love you? That's all right for you. But everybody always gonna be worried about Bernice. How Bernice gonna take care of herself? How she gonna raise that child without a man? Wonder what she do with herself? How can she live like that? I got these type of questions for Bernice. Tell me how I can't be a woman unless I got a man. Well, you tell me, Avery, you know. How much of a woman am I? I'm going to admit something I never thought I had to admit to anyone ever. I got passion out of uncontrollable passion. It's unrequited passion, of course. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm going against everything I've said so far. I guess I am. Oh, I know every girl at school except Monica is in love with him. I never go for a dad like me. Oh, I know it's hopeless. I know that. Just thinking he might look at me. It makes my heart start pounding like mad, and I wonder whether he can hear my heart going crazy, and then I have to act real and cool this Christmas. Oh, it's like a disease. Oh, and did you know? Oh. I'm almost through there to live this. The bus sometimes because he's riding up some girl or something, and what do I do? I get off the bus, walk back to the bus stop, hoping he'll show up just so we ride on the same bus with each other. Thank you.
Hello, I will be performing Almost There from Princess and the Frog. That's just gonna have to rewind. Ain't got time for messing around, and it's not my style. Disco time can slow down, people taking the easy way. When I know exactly where I'm going, get closer and closer every day, and I'm almost there. Almost there. People down here think I'm crazy, well, I don't care. Trials and tribulations, I've had my share. There ain't nothing gonna stop me now, 'cause I'm almost there. I remember the time you told me fairy tales can come true. You gotta make them happen, it all depends on you. So I work real hard each and every day. Things for sure are going my way. Just doing what I do. Boys are coming through, but I'm almost there. I'm almost there. People gonna come here from everywhere, and I'm almost there. I'm almost there. There's been trials and tribulations, you know, I had my share, but I climbed the mountain, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. I'm almost
Amazing. We keep running, we have to start people coming. That is amazing. Thank you guys so very much. You know, from the board standpoint, this is just a sample of, we have 120 programs that are in the after school and summer programs. This is just one great snippet of what we have, and it's just amazing. And thank you again. I thought I would just give a little bit of the background for the board today with regards to KHA. In 2017, Mayor Curry announced that he'd be combining the work of the Jacksonville Children's Commission with the work of Jack's Journey to form one entity, being Kids Hope Alliance. And then in January of 2018, KHA officially started with an interim CEO, Mike Weinstein. And then after some transition, Mike returned to KHA as its permanent CEO in 2020 to lead us until this past June. And did an incredible job along with the team of Sarah Lynn, and we've had this incredible performance. And then that was when Mayor Deegan got elected. Mayor Deegan asked Mike if he would come in as an interim in the chief financial position, which he has been working through the transition. And I also want to just say, through all of this, Dr. Grass and Kenneth have just done an absolutely incredible job with an amazing team of navigating us through a lot of great challenges, but also a lot of great opportunities. So I just want to say to you and all of the team at KHA that are here, thank you so much. You've done a super job. When KHA was created, many of the contracts from JCC and the Journey were still in process. And so for the first year, it was really intentional that we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose any, of our traction that we had with our partners, and also to make sure that the partners that had been funded, we were able to continue to keep good, strong programming going. And then once those ended, after about a year, KHA put out its first RFPs for the essential service categories. You've probably gone through a lot of information that Dr. Grass sent over. It's a lot. I was talking with Connie beforehand, and she said she's been drinking fire from a fire hose there, water from a fire hose. And so we have a lot. And so the design on the essential service categories at the time was to really try to focus in on some real strategic areas. It's also going to be an opportunity for this board to look at, and determine if this is what we want to stay with, or do we want to continue to look at other categories that we may want to add in. But initially for us, we really wanted to work hard on focusing in on those essential service categories. Our board did a great job of breaking out and leading the conversation throughout the community on gathering information with our partners to determine what do we need to do, what were the measurements that we needed to really focus in on as we move through that. And I'm excited about where we've come. You're going to hear a lot about that today in Dr. Sarah Lynn's presentation to you. But the key is that we were able to continue to use this plan, and RFPs were issued in early 23, and we're now successfully funding 63 nonprofits in over 200 locations citywide. And this is not counting the programming that spans the entire county, such as full service schools, which provides services to every school in the district, or Healthy Families, which supports any new mom in need of their support. And then I asked Dr. Grass to kind of give us a perspective of funding, because I think this is really important. And our first full year of funding in 18-19 year, KHA received $29.5 million from the city for programming. In this current year and upcoming year, we were just approved to receive $47.5 0.8 million. But now you're gonna hear that number has gone up dramatically from the work that the city council and our new mayor have done on the transition team to bring in additional dollars, which are really gonna be significant. I think you're all gonna be excited to hear about that. Finally, I want to just say too, just to kind of give you guys an understanding of the role of the board. A lot of you that I know have been involved in nonprofits and that part of it, and you know that, really good work with nonprofits and boards and organizations is to allow the staff to run the organization, the team, the executive team to run the organization. We manage the executive director. And that's really been our model. And so overseeing the work of the CEO, we have been working with Dr. Grass and Canada directly to ensure that the organization is functioning at a high level and that the goals of the organization are being met. Ensuring accountability, transparency through the review of each RFP that is issued for programming. The board reviews the scope of the work, the measurement requirements, and the scoring criteria. We also review each grant we apply for to ensure that there's a good fit for the agency and the work is appropriate for our charge. One of the things we worked on, I think done a great job, is not going after mission creep, but going after grants that really don't fill in the areas that that we think are important for us staying focused on our targets. And so I think we've done a really good job with that. Each year, we work with the CEO to prepare our budget requests to the city and then review the financials ongoing throughout the year. The board is also responsible for reviewing, developing, and approving policies consistent with the ordinance and the plan to drive the direction, scope, and priorities of the Kids Hope Alliance. And the other part that I mentioned to Dr. Grass, I think is important, and I want to give credit to Dr. Marvin Wells over the last 2 years as our board chair, really had challenged the board to get out into the community more. And so our board has really every month are going out to, to meet and see the great work that's taking place out in the community. So I think it just gives us that proximity shift of getting closer and closer to the work and seeing the great work that's there, reminding us why we are doing what we're doing, but also to see the incredible work that our partners are doing every day. And so with that, we're going to take a little kind of segue, and I know that we've got Conchita and Ms. Dennis that are going to lead us through the little icebreaker session. And by the way, they have been incredibly helpful to the board over the last couple of years and leading us through a lot of planning sessions. And so I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I don't know where I should stand. Good afternoon. Hard to follow that wonderful act, and of course, Mr. Gay, but we all come to a board for a lot of reasons. And given that you all were relatively put together as a new board, we thought that would be nice to hear what we bring. So we had these questions out here. We already heard your name, but we'd like you to go ahead and tell us your name, how long you lived in Jacksonville, and then we have anywhere from maybe a half dozen to 20 reasons why we choose to get involved in any particular board. And there's always a community reason and there's always a personal reason. So we'd like you to share just your top ones. And we're gonna go in no particular order, but I am gonna ask Dr. Grass to get us started.
That's great. All right, I'm Sarah Lynn Grass. I am from Jacksonville, born and raised. I went to Cedar Hills Elementary, James Weldon Johnson, who Mr. Dennis was a principal there, and Stanton High School and UNF. I did move away for about 13 years to live in Tallahassee, where I got a lot of great experience on the policy level. So 2 reasons why I'm committed to improving the quality of life for the community. I love Jacksonville. It is my home. And I mean, I think what we saw today is the reason why I'm committed to doing this, just for our children here, that they have the best programs that they can have, the best quality of life, and for our families too. I think our families sometimes need a little bit of help to get to that next place. And so we as a whole group here are really committed to helping them do that. A personal reason is, so many of you may be aware, but I have a daughter who I adopted at the age of 16. And every day that I'm with her, it just makes me realize how important this work is, how far she's come, and that, you know, it's never too late to make a difference in a child's life and what they can come from and get to. She just got married and bought a house, and so just on a personal level, it inspires me every day to do what we do.
Absolutely. Thanks for getting us started.
I'll go next. I have lived in Jacksonville my entire life. I am a native as well. Since we're naming schools. I will not miss the opportunity. I went to Spicer's Kitty Corner, then Bayview Elementary School, where my mom was my 5th grade social studies teacher. That's a conversation for another day. I went to Stanton College Prep School when it opened as a 7th to 12th grade center. We did not have sports at that time. That's a conversation for another day. And then I went to Ribault Middle, and then I graduated from Ribault High School. I went to college at Florida A&M University, where my mom and all 7 of her siblings received their undergraduate and graduate degrees. There was only one college application. And moved to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and returned to Jacksonville. I was very struck by James and the comment of build it well, and they will stay. Build it well, and they will also return. And I am one of those who return, and the work that I get to do professionally is an effort to be able to make our community one where those who have left will return and those who are here will stay. I wear my mom's high school class ring along with my high school class ring. The greatest benefit that I have received is a quality education. And when I look at the gaps and the disparities that we deal with as a society, I recognize that the only difference and the greatest equalizer is education. So both personal and community, I am here for that reason alone. And it is an honor to see Aviana and Charity and the countless others who are thriving and of course clearly successful because of this work. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody gets a turn. Tough one.
I'm Carson Tranquil. How long I've lived in Jacksonville? About 35 years. I moved to Jacksonville in '88. Graduated from high school in St. Petersburg, Florida, from St. Petersburg, Florida. Retired from Jacksonville Sheriff Office. Did 30 years, and I was a police officer in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for shortly when I went to school, but that's neither here. But the reason I'm committed to this, as my career in the sheriff office, I've always tried to make a difference and figure out how to make a difference. And one of the things I do know, if we don't invest in our kids and our children, and while they are young, and it's that old, you keep them straight while they're growing up, and they're gonna be okay. But if they bend and they get old, you're not gonna change them. So you gotta get to them while they're young. So I believe this program and this organization is my calling, and I feel like I can make a difference. That's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
Okay. So, first you heard my name is Cynthia Nixon, and, I've lived in Jacksonville for 40 years. In fact, I celebrated my 40th wedding anniversary this year. He married a baby. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. And one of the reasons, a personal reason for me is that I was one of the children that KHA is committed to serve. In fact, I believe, well, I didn't realize that I was growing up poor when I was growing up. And if it wasn't for the investment that people put into me, I don't think I would be here today. So I ended up attending college in New Orleans. I went to Xavier University. And I went to UNF and got my MBA. And so that's my personal reason for wanting to be here. I want to make sure that the children in Jacksonville, you know, are successful. And everything I do is to give back to my community. And so I want to do whatever I can to make sure that this organization is truly moving the needle for children. And in terms of a community reason, that's part of it. but also as a person in finance, the city is investing a lot of funds into this organization to move that needle. And so I want to make sure that I do whatever I can to make sure that, you know, that we can show them that we're doing that and that there's some accountability for that. So I'm so glad to be here to serve again. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Donna?
Okay. I've lived in Jacksonville since 1986, and I came here thinking I'd be here for like 4 or 5 years. And I worked with United Way here, but I worked with 2 United Ways before. But then I met a guy. And it lasted a little bit longer than 4 or 5 years. I'm very happy about that. I've lived here, like I said, I've lived here that long, but I have been with United Way for many, many, many years. And there are 2 reasons why I've committed to do this, is because it's kind of been my life's work. I kind of flunked at being a teacher, and I didn't do that well. I love the kids, but I didn't stay with it. But I realized that I could make a difference another way. So there, I went into United Way, and that has been my history. I had the opportunity to do this because I really believe in helping kids and being there for kids and having a community that cares about children and what needs to happen and how we can help them, how we can serve the families as well. So I am honored to be here. And what's the other reason?
Bill.
That was a community. Guess what? He's the reason I say so long.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. I'm Lawrence Dennis again. I am a, born and raised in Mobile, Alabama. I graduated high school at age 16, and from there I matriculated to the Florida A&M University, which sits on the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida, where I was a member of the incomparable Marching 100. Played percussion back in the day. And I hold a distinction in terms of my family. I'm the first male in my entire family to earn a college degree. From FAMU, actually, ironic that I was on my way, leaving graduate school, while I've been in Jacksonville now 45 years. Yeah, 45 years. Leaving the family, I was on my way to Tampa. Some friends of mine were gigging at Busch Gardens, and I had a degree in guidance and counseling, but there was this lady in Jacksonville that I was told by my professor. She was interested in a young black male to be a guidance counselor at elementary school. Well, I've not been in elementary school since I was an elementary student, but I figured, hey, if it's a job, so I might as well go and interview for it. And I went in the interview, and ironically, she liked what she heard, and the job was offered. And I went directly to Human Resources, did my application. I had a black and white glossy of myself in my wallet that I pinned to the application, and I never made it to Tampa. And 37 years in Duval County Public Schools, started off as a guidance counselor, assistant principal. I was a principal for 19 years, elementary, middle, and also senior high school. In addition to being a former principal at James Well, I'm also a former principal at Sean V. Both senior high school. Okay, cool. You came in second, I guess, right? This past weekend, but it's always next year, I suppose. As far as the reasons, well, 2 in particular. My wife, she and I have been married for 23 years. She is a principal at elementary school right now. I have a son that's in the school system as well. And obviously, in terms of my background as pertains to education, I've always had this passion for working with students, and I always like listening to students. I think oftentimes we sort of assume certain things, but I'm a genuine listener. And when I think in terms of the communities that we service, thinking back to my childhood, growing up in segregated Alabama, Jim Crow, that's a part of the stuff that I experienced as a young child, knowing that type of divisiveness that was there at that particular time. And getting to a point now where I'm retired, living this retired lifestyle. But also I'm doing a lot of work that I have a passion for. And this is, basically the reason that, I'm serving on this, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome, thank you so much, Lauren. Got a few more?
Yes, my name is Kevin Gay again. Lived in Jacksonville all of my life, 30 years. And I. But, yeah, I've lived in Jacksonville all my life. Two reasons why I do this work. So the personal side was, 28 years ago, my priest, Mother Daybeth Church. Some of you have been around for a while, probably remember Mother Daybeth Church. I just did the eulogy at her funeral a couple months ago. An incredible woman who was engaged in the community, and I had gone to her office one day getting ready to go on a mission trip, and I was doing my proverbial check off the box trip each year and go do my faith part. This one day I go in her office, though, she goes, "So when are guys like you gonna get it?" And I'm like, "Well, gosh, I wasn't expecting that. You know, I was expecting nobody to pray on you, you know, off you go." But what she was saying was, "You don't think there's anything that needs to be done in this community? I don't know why you think, you know, mission work is important, but there's a lot to be done in this community." I said, "I'm sure there is." She goes, "You wouldn't even know where to go, where to look." And so she goes, "What I want you to do before you make this decision to go off and do a mission trip is to take a week and a half off. I'm going to assign you somebody to go with, a guy named Ed Hayes. I don't know if some of you remember Ed Hayes, who wonderful guy, former football player. But for a week and a half, he and I spent a week and a half in the northwest part of town. And I wouldn't have known where to navigate. But there was a reason, she wanted me to see our community more broadly than what I had done, you know, what I had seen. And then she said, "I want you to come back and let's talk about it." And she knew exactly what she was doing. And when I came back, I said to her, I said, "You know, I hate to tell you this, but, you know, I'm sad. I'm a bit hurt, because I lived in this city all my life with blinders on, and I had driven from Jacksonville Beach into town, back and forth, kind of knowing that things aren't, you know, perfect on, you know, out in our community." And certainly that was an eye opener. And then a couple years later, I ended up leaving corporate America and then started Operation New Hope, which has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. That allowed me to get involved with folks that have been in the criminal justice system. And without a doubt, the most beautiful thing that has happened in my life. The other side of it is, though, that happened in that process that really awoken me to the idea is trying to go upstream a bit. And so when Mayor Curry, they were launching, you know, this new initiative with the Kids Hope Alliance, I said, I'd really like to be a part of being able to begin to work on some of the issues that I think we saw on the back end that happened with folks who didn't get services, not by, you know, them being bad people, they just never had the opportunity. And so KHA really presents that opportunity. So it's been a blessing to be a part of this work.
Thank you, Karen. And Karen,
Oh, I get to go too? Okay, that's good. No, similar to what Cynthia said, I'm a product of Jacksonville, Florida, born and raised, and I have all the check boxes of all of the statistics of why I shouldn't be successful and shouldn't be here today. You know, single mother, bounced around from out east to north side, bottom area, lodging homes, Brentwood, you know, Roosevelt, Hilltop, you know, those are the areas I was, you know, in. And it was after school programming. It was mentors. It was, you know, programs like the former bridge in Northeast Florida that gave me insight that there was another world out there. You know, showed me areas that my mother couldn't, right? Because her job was to keep me safe and provide and be a mother and father and all those things. And it's my way of giving back to the programs and the individuals who invested in my life so I can be here today in this position today. And then personal, that was really my community, to give back, what the community gave back to me. But personal is, I have 3 children. I don't plan on leaving Jacksonville. I went to school near UNF, Webster University, remote. And I would love for my children to grow up and be successful and wealthy and productive and give back and want to stay in this community as well. And so those are my reasons.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else get inspired and want to share as well? Well, all of those reasons why you come together is really, as you face your challenges as a board, as you meet some barriers, remember, you're all coming from different places. And hear each other out and listen to one another, much like what I heard Lauren say. Listen and really meet those challenges, understanding that we have different perspectives, but we're all really facing the same thing. Getting those community reasons and those personal reasons. Now, I believe I'm turning it to Rashida and Katie. I'm Regine Denis, by the way. I didn't introduce myself. If the picture's on the next.
And Regine, we can have our parent liaisons. Y'all wanna go?
You say right here.
Right here.
Okay. Oh, okay, please.
Okay, why not?
Thank you.
So I've lived in Jacksonville all 40 years of my life, aside from my military travels around the world, United States Army veteran. So 2 of the reasons, one of the community reasons, it's a part of my job, the Assistant Chief of Community Engagement for the Sheriff's Office. So we partner heavily with Kids Hope Alliance on majority of the initiatives that are implemented within the community. And another personal reason is I lost my nephew to gang violence. He was murdered back in 2001. And had he had the opportunity to be in one of these programs that's funded by Kids Hope Alliance, I think we would have been able to save his life. So Kids Hope Alliance is the epitome of intervention and prevention, which is one of the things that steers our young people from gang violence. So the programming is there, and we're definitely appreciative of the partnership. So this is the reason why I do what I do.
Thank you.
Diana Johnson, I have actually been here, May was 20 years, was a chosen home now. I grew up underneath Florence in the Panhandle, Florida. And my mom was military, but we were able to stay there for most of my life. And the rest of my family is in the rural Midwest. So, programming personally, I was actually just telling Chief that my sister and I had a youth center available to us at the base, where we grew up. And so there was not a day of my life that I wasn't there if I wasn't in school. So aftercare programming came free for us, or very cheap, because we were on the Air Force Base and I played sports all the time. There was really no time to do anything else. Community reason and kind of personal reason is I think we know we all are interconnected. My kids come to me because the community unfortunately fails them in their families. They can't read, their families don't have money, and they don't know where to go, and they end up in trouble. So with Kids Hope Alliance and the resources we have, it helps me help my kids.
Great, thank you. And last but certainly not least.
Hello, Reese Wilson, I'm with the Office of General Counsel. I've been in Jacksonville my full life. And I'm covering here for Lasikia Hodges. And I have 2 elementary age children that are in public school system here in Jacksonville. So I would like to be a grandfather at some point in the future, not, the next couple of years. So I've invested in the community and seeing, how we can raise the next generation of children. And as a Jacksonville native, I love the city, and lived in New York City for a while. After college, we came back here, was drawn back, and just want to see it reach its potential and want to be a part of that in some small way. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you for sharing. Take care. Regine?
I think the next slide just introduces us to you. So I'd start by saying thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of your day, your first official board meeting. I know many of you at the table. My name is Conchita Robinson, and we've been working with Kids Hope Alliance now since the beginning. We work with Cynthia, Cynthia was here, but yeah, I think this is full circle, this is outdated. And we work with, you know, the others at the table. Work with Connie Hodges, and in fact, with my United Way story was I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. My father was Dr. Andrew A. Robinson, who started William and Maureen High School, and my mother was a military school teacher. So education is who I am and what I do, and it was what I taught, and it was what I was taught. So we start with that in my background. I went off to school, to a small Lutheran school in Newberry, South Carolina, Newberry College. I came back, I was gonna teach, but I got an offer to work at the at IBM. They were looking for African Americans to now become a part of their leadership staff and their professional staff, and I was brought on as an intern and then later as a systems engineer. And the thing that's interesting is that on my first day of work, September official work, not the internship work, it was September 1st, 1982, and I was told I came in and signed paperwork and to report over to the United Way, because my first day of work, I was going to be a loaned executive for the United Way. And if you really bad, that was what so that was a way to take, you know, this little nerd math major. And I was going to, remember I was going to get a sales office as a systems engineer. I got to go out and see what, you know, what life is like in the city. So I got to travel around during my first, I guess, 60, 90 days, as you know, Connie. Learning the stories. It was easier not to be so shy standing up with, you know, with that group as you go around. So it was growth. And community is what I've done from that time on. And it's been many, many, many years since that first day on the job. But it's so good to be here with you all. We've enjoyed our time and the work that we have done with Duval County Public Schools, with the charities in the area, with Dr. Grass, Dixon, Kevin Gay, the folks who in Ken Darity, and others who have been a part of this organization. You've already met the other member of my team that's here, Regine Durnee, but I'd like, Katie, why don't you stand and give an introduction, one of my partners in a lot of the work that we've done here.
Hi, so my name is Katie Bakewell. I work with Logics. We've been working on projects with the city, starting with Jack Sterney and JCC, and then with KHA as the two organizations combined. And I'll roll right into a couple slides. So there's a really detailed analysis of this. There's sort of a shorter summary of this, but then here's a couple slides just to give you a little bit of an overview of the needs assessment and gap analysis that was done in the last year. So we were brought together with Kids Hope Alliance to say, let's understand what are the needs of the community and what are the things that are not currently being served. So let's understand the needs of the community, how KHA funded programs are and are not meeting those needs, what needs are being met elsewhere. I think it's really important for us to understand not only the work that Kids Hope Alliance does, but the work other organizations do in the city. Create a community resource list of providers and identify where there's gaps, and then create recommendations to help KHA really more effectively meet those community needs. So obviously when we're doing a community needs assessment, a huge piece of this was community feedback. So we did primary data analysis and secondary. The secondary is looking at things like digging into the data, and looking at the current funding of KHA, but even more importantly was the listening sessions and a survey. So the listening sessions were held with KHA providers, KHA staff, youth, and then throughout the city. So we had a couple remote, and then we had a couple in each area of the city to make sure that we had feedback from across the city. It was 23 total hours of feedback. We also got 771 people that were parents or youth in the community to answer surveys to understand what are their needs and what are the programs that they really do need and aren't able to access.
So it was really important for us to get this community feedback and compile that with the community data analysis to understand what are the things that are really being faced in our community. And one of the things that was a real focus here is results-based accountability. So, you know, if you've been in this space, you've heard this. I know there's been some, you know, efforts in the city to try and take a look at this in the past. But we wanted to really sort of dig in, and the Kids Hope Alliance made a commitment with, I think it was 20 people, that actually went and got certified, but for results-based accountability. And it's not just those 3 things you see in the bottom, which is what you typically see. How well is anyone better off? Which is how you can measure a program. But it's really starting with what is the goal of the community? So we want to understand a population. So if there's something like youth in Jacksonville, a condition of well-being, like will be healthy, and then have a population indicator for that. What is the population number that we can track to see, are we moving the needle in the community? And then with individual organizations, having goals and performance measures that match along with those population indicators. So it's a system of being able to measure and being really data focused on the things that we're doing. So, you know, just a set of recommendations, the proposed funding priorities, given additional funds, and these were based on that research that we took a look at for the data and from what the community is looking for, early intervention programming, holistic services at community hope centers. So not just saying we need this service in a community or we need this service, but being able to create a holistic set of services and mental health resources. And then the final recommendations that we had for, Kids Hope Alliance were changes to the essential service categories. If you look at the past ordinance, it sort of broke things down into after school, teens and preteens, juvenile justice. We really think there's a better way to frame that. Leveraging and seeking additional funding. There's some really sort of detail that we could drill into one day on, you know, different ways that organizations are funded. Funding multi-use spaces, again, those holistic spaces within the community. Strengthen data collection strategies for those indicators. If we're gonna commit to results-based accountability, we should commit and really strengthen those partnerships that happen. So things like DCPS and the Department of Juvenile Justice, where we have those community partnerships to get data and to be able to track things, and it's really important to maintain those. And then also maintaining a provider inventory to understand what's going on within the community. So I turn it back over to Conchita. Thank you. Thank you.
So this was the initial study, the work that had to be done in order to get all of the community-based information that the board and the staff needed to begin the work. As Katie shared, when the organization was started, there was a 2018 Kids Hope Alliance Essential Services Plan developed. And it set out, you know, here are all the focus areas that we're gonna have, and here are the things that we're gonna measure. And what started to happen is we soon realized that we needed to go really figure out what was out there in the community, where the gaps were, how we could make, as you spoke about, how we can make sure that we're making a difference and moving the needle forward with the dollars that we were given. So the first thing that they asked is for NLP Logics to go study what's going on in this community. Where is there a lot of investment? Where are the gaps? And where should we focus? As a result of that, we were then asked to come in and to facilitate the development of a new services plan, which I understand you all have received as a part of the fire hose of information that you got. And we just wanted to kind of share with you how we got there, because this is fairly new. And I think maybe in the last 6 months or so, yes. So the way we started was we had all of that information that was gathered, and it was a lot more than you saw here on the screen, but that was shared with all of the members of the board, and it was shared with the staff as well. And we were asked to come in and have a couple of sessions with the executive team to understand what they were seeing thus far and to build a strategy for moving forward to figure out how to best modify this strategic plan or services plan into something that could guide the work of Kids Hope Alliance and their partners in this community. So we had a couple of sessions with the executive team. We facilitated 2 workshops. We facilitated a workshop with all the KHA leadership. And then we facilitated a KHA workshop with the staff. Those workshops were share with them what's going on in the community and to begin to talk through how we could make things better, what changes we could make, because a lot of good work was going on, and as it still is now. But the question was, how should we frame it to allow for us to continue to do our best work in this community? We then had a board retreat where we brought back all of the information from the staff, leadership and staff to the board. And we began to facilitate with them in this room. We had charts all over the board to get from them. What is it that you think we ought to be doing in Kids Hope Alliance? Where do you think the gaps are? And we spent a day doing that with the board. And then we took all of that information back and we combined it with what we had heard from the staff, and we put together a draft document along with the staff. Again, as you can imagine, we spent some time working with the team on that, and then we brought it back to the board, sharing with them where we were, sharing where we thought the gaps were, and then, see if I can do this, sharing with them where the gaps were, and then actually coming together to work on new revised vision, mission, that you'll see we didn't change much. I think we might have changed one word in the vision, but not a lot of it was changed because it truly was good work in the past. But what we did was an environment where every child can reach their academic, career, and civic potential. I think we may have taken youth out of that title, but not much else was changed, because the organization was focused and had the mission the vision that it thought it should have going into the future. The mission to build and facilitate access to a continuum of comprehensive and integrated programs, services, and activities that address the critical needs of children, youth, and their families. I think, and their families was the critical piece. And I heard 2 or 3 of you mention and their families, because you know you don't go far if you don't deal with the families as well. So that was added to the mission to move from the initial essential services plan to the new document, strategic plan or services plan. Then the next thing that was done, and this is what took all the work, through all of those workshops and those meetings, is the board and the staff really boiled this down to 5 overarching goals. And I gotta tell you what was critical in all of this is that results-based accountability, right? We had to come up with the overarching goal areas, and it really is like a goal area, because the measurements are gonna be underneath, and the measurements needed to be something that we could go find the data for and measure. Right? And we could modify those over time as we identified new and more data. But the overarching goals, first, that Duval children and youth are physically and mentally healthy and safe. Okay. That could be parks and rec, in that too, if you can imagine, because we had all kinds of things all over the wall that we had to make sure would fit under these different areas. That Duval children and youth succeed in school. That youth successfully transition to adulthood. That children, youth, and their families have access to the services that they need. And that the providers serving Duval children, youth, and their families also have access to continuous training and support so that this could continue to show continuous improvement over time, so that the results could show continuous improvement. And from these overarching goals, we then broke down each one of the goals to say what fits underneath each one of those goals and how might we measure that. So if you look, you would see under mentally healthy and safe, physically, mentally healthy and safe, children and youth have access to safe and available places to play and build relationships. The children with special needs and their families have timely access to available resources for assessment and services. They receive the knowledge, support, and access to resources necessary to live a healthy lifestyle. Babies are born healthy and meet appropriate milestones as they grow, and children and youth and their families have access to continuous physical and mental health services, and that they utilize them in lieu of emergency services. So these were all of the items that the staff and the board felt that we really needed to put underneath the Duval Children and Youth Are Physically and Mentally Healthy and Safe to help those who were measuring identify what things we could use, what data we could use to truly measure whether we were moving the ball forward. And that is what we did for each of them. So under Duval, Children and Youth Succeed in School, families have access to affordable and high-quality early care and education. Children and youth perform at grade level, particularly in the areas of literacy and numeracy. Children and youth remain engaged and successfully complete each grade. Things we can measure. Children enter kindergarten ready to succeed. And children and youth have access to available high-quality supplemental education and enrichment services. So under the category of the youth and children succeed in school, these are the ways that the team felt that we could measure whether we were succeeding in this area. Successful transition to adulthood. You have access to the information about careers and educational pathways. They complete the necessary steps to obtain the skills to achieve their career. They have access to the guidance of a caring adult. They receive opportunities to be civically engaged in the community. All things that we know help Duval youth successfully transition to adulthood. We're going to avoid the criminal justice system, but those involved with the criminal justice system will successfully reintegrate into society. Have access, children, youth, and families have access to the services they need. Families requiring services will be able to access those services without difficulty. Families and the providers have easily accessible information about the needed and available resources. Youth and families have access to financial education and services. Family members have opportunities for purposeful interaction. They have access to holistic, comprehensive services within their community that are timely, most important, and convenient. And they have the protective factors and support that they need to prevent child abuse and neglect. And then our last goal area, providers serving Duval County children, and youth and their families have access to continuous support and training. And that is providing the necessary environment and the support needed for the partners that KHA has. They have the knowledge and the support to maximize available funding. And there was a lot of discussion around that. Even if the funding isn't here at KHA, there may be guidance as to where you can go and get additional funding to do this good work. That the providers will receive ongoing training opportunities to increase the quality of services that each and every one of you provide. And that the providers will receive training to support, to build their capacity to serve Jacksonville's children, youth, and families. They'll have access to research and tools to assist in writing competitive grant applications.
And the partnerships will be established and maintained for the purpose of information sharing, marketing and advertising and availability of services. And lastly, that providers will have access to the tools and to the resources to enhance the services to those with unique circumstances, particularly those with physical and mental challenges and English language learners. So again, the 5 categories that were developed. We were working very hard to get these developed so that we could create and communicate the transition from this document to this in time so that we could do the work that we needed to do with putting out the RFPs to get the providers ready to work in the new way. And I think, Kenneth, are you
Yes, ma'am.
taking us from here?
All right. Thank you, Conchita and Katie. I will be, try to be concise, with my presentation, because I do see where we're on the agenda. I know we have several items to, that's coming up in addition to some action items. But I did want to say the work of NLP Logics and, Conchita and her team, and with the work of the board gave staff the charge to be able to then put out these 4 RFPs. So this is pretty much almost our entire portfolio that we put out. So it's a real big endeavor, and want to start by just saying thanks to the staff who put a lot of time and effort in getting that out. I see my directors in the back, so all of you and your teams, we want to give you your flowers for the hard work and the work they're still doing, because we're still trying to get providers paid and contracts, as you'll see in a little bit. But, so I'll spend a little more time on these first couple of slides to just talk about the RFP process. So RFP stands for Request for Proposals. We did release 4 in the spring and in the summer. The one we released in the summer is our Small Providers Academy, or Emerging Academy RFP. Each RFP, we do a pre-bid conference. And the purpose of that pre-bid conference is to give our providers an opportunity to ask questions, to get a little insight on what we're asking from that RFP. We typically do 2, at one time in the morning, one time in the afternoon, because we know providers have different schedules. And some providers are the CEO, the programmatic person, the finance person. And so we try to offer those 2 times. So for each RFP, we had 2 pre-bid conferences. They were done virtually, so we can capture as many people, and they were live. But then to follow up on that, we offered a recording of that live training for those who couldn't make it. And all they had to do was listen to the recording and then answer a quiz to show that they actually listened to it, right? Take the quiz. And that's proof of meeting that mandatory requirement. All the contracts, all the RFPs are 1-year contracts with 3 renewal options. So a successful provider can have up to 4 total years of funding. The board, you guys have the right, based on performance, compliance, things of that nature, to actually not continue with, you have the option to renew, I should say that. But a provider can be funded up to 4 years under these RFPs. The funding is aligned with the KHA service goals as stated earlier. All primary services and target population have to be in Duval County. The only exception to that as far as services, providers can go take field trips, exposure opportunities outside the county, but the primary services have to be in Duval County and for its residents. And then we talked about the results-based accountability framework. We embedded that in all of our RFPs. Just continuing, we added minimum provider requirements for each RFP, and we talked about that in the pre-bid conferences, because sometimes you have providers who show up, try to apply for funding, they want to provide services in another county, another state. They have a great idea, but not an actual program, right? And so in this pre-bid conference, we're able to explain that and prevent a provider from going through those efforts and wouldn't even be eligible to be scored. We emphasize collaboration. The scoring was done primarily by internal staff. but we also utilize local subject matter experts when needed. Obviously, we needed some more support for this. We put out about 3 RFPs at one time, and then a 4th one right after that. So we did utilize some local subject matter experts. Now, to be able to receive funding, a provider had to meet the minimum scoring requirement, which was basically about 70% of the total points you can receive in the application. But as far as funding, we started from the highest score and worked our way down up to that minimum scoring, and when we ran out of money as well. So we go from highest to lowest, and that's generally how we do all of our RFPs. Agilon registration, I know some of the board members, we did discussions on Agilon, went over that, registration in the pre-bid, talked about site visits, monitoring, assessment, and required training. So these are all the things that are embedded in the RFP, as well as what we covered in our pre-bid conferences. All right, so I'm not gonna go through all these slides, but I did want to give you a little bit of information, a broad picture of what was in each RFP. So the first one was the after school and summer programming, elementary through high school. The funding awarded for year 1 is about approximately 16 million, but that's only for 10 months. So the actual amount is going to be more in year 2. And this is because we're trying to get all of our RFPs on the June 1 to May 31st schedule to better align with the school year. And so the actual, once we get to 2, 3, and 4, it'll be a much higher number. And that's right from the funding award. That probably doesn't include the additional funding that we received recently. So that'll be even. I wanted to highlight on this particular RFP that services can be year-round or it can be summer only. We do have a lot of out of school time providers who just say, hey, I only want to do summer camp. And so those providers have the opportunity to be a part of this bid as well. And then the activities, literacy, homework assistance, physical, social, emotional learning, healthy snacks, education, family engagement, service learning. You can read the rest, but specifically for our middle and high school students, we wanted to incorporate college and career development. As we talked about transitioning to adulthood, workforce development, try to make sure we embedded that for that population. And then for this particular RFP, our providers will be paid on a units of service-based model with the deliverables that they have to also submit. And if you're not familiar with units of service, think of it just as a contact, touch, amount of time spending with the youth or the client, and they get paid a rate based on that time with the student. Services for children, youth, and their families. I would say this is probably our most challenging RFP. This is what internally we probably call like a catch-all RFP. And what made this RFP a little more challenging is that we embedded several essential service categories or service areas, which you see on there. Children, youth, and disabilities, mental health, early intervention, etc. And so a provider for this RFP can apply for it. Any of those service categories. So what you'll see, we have a few providers who actually are funded in multiple categories. And for year 1, you'll see the funding amount at about 8.7. Again, that's for a 10-month contract. Year 2 will be a little bit bigger. And how we fund or pay these providers, it really can be a combination because we have multiple categories. So if we're doing like an after-school type program, it could be units of service. It could be a provider who's doing something in a different space and it's a cost reimbursement model. Or it could be a combination of deliverable-based payment. Rejects collaboration pilot. What I want to highlight on this RFP was that this was limited to Duval County children and youth that are attending just 8 schools. So this RFP was specific to 8 schools in partnership with Duval County Public Schools that were identified. They were all elementary sites. You can see the locations on the screen. Arlington Heights, Highlands, Northwestern Legends, Pinedale, Reynolds Lane, Rufus Payne, and Woodland Acres, for those in the back who may not be able to see that. What we did for this RFP, since we know there are only 8 schools, we set, a requirement that only one provider can apply up to 4 schools. We didn't want this to be monopolized by one provider, right? Especially knowing we go off highest score down to lower. The highest score applied for 8 sites, they would have got all of it. We didn't put that requirement in. We wanted to have some opportunities for other providers to be able to get in and have some, variety and see how a couple providers could accomplish this. These are year-round services, it's the after-school model. But we embedded some things in this pilot that we've gotten from the research, the gap analysis, and we're really excited about seeing how the outcomes of this. But case management, family engagement, and literacy are key components. So it's really like a 4 component model, and we're going to be paying the providers the different units of service rates for each one of those components. And then just like the other RFP, this one is primarily units of service, but there is a cost reimbursement and deliverable-based payment model as well. Okay, last RFP, and I'm gonna pass it back over to Ms. Conchita. This was the last RFP I mentioned. This closed August 22nd, 2023. What was unique about this RFP is we actually combined with the Department of Grants. So $400,000 RFP went out. Kids Hope Alliance focused on providers who are serving children. And the grants department focused on providers who are serving adults. We put out one RFP and providers need to identify which population they were serving. And those providers that were awarded, there were a total of 16 total providers who were funded. KHA has 8 providers up under us, and the Department of Grants is gonna have 8 up under them. And you can see the goals right there, but really in simplifying what the goals are is really trying to prepare a provider to get used to doing business with the city and preparing them to apply for bigger possibilities. And sort of simplifying what the goal of this RFP is. And we do that through the provide a lot of coaching, technical assistance on year 1, and I'll go into that a little bit in the next slide. We did have to give some requirements for eligible applicants, so we didn't have bigger capacity providers applying for this because this was specific to small emerging providers. So they had to have an operating budget of $250,000 or less, and serve a minimum of 10, up to a maximum of 500 participants. And you can see it needs to be a non-for-profit entity in good standing, registered with the state of Florida as of June 1st, 2022. We want to make sure again, it wasn't a provider who just said, okay, hey, I got a great idea. I want to apply for this funding, and then, they're not even up and running officially against. And then the primary audience, same as our other RFPs, we're looking at an ad hoc population or most vulnerable persons in Duval County. I'm sorry. How's that defined?
Yeah, in Hobart.
Yeah, so we can go back. So we defined the at hope. We used to, for those who get along with Jacksonville Children's Commission, we used to be at risk, right? We used to use that term. At hope and at risk are synonymous. We sort of change the framing of it, right? And we, for each RFP, we sort of spelled out what that target population is in the RFP. But basically, you're looking at things such as students who receive governmental assistance, like SNAP benefits, things of that nature. It can be income-based, like it can be in a certain zip code. It's a lot of different variables, but we stated all in the RFP.
Thank you.
Good question. And I believe this is the last slide. Just want to highlight the areas of interest. Again, this is in conjunction with the gap analysis, the essential service plan. But for year 1 funding, that's the thing I want to end on. Year 1 funding is completely based on trainings. So that way the providers, we know they can get that foundation of certain trainings and supports that they'll need and can continue to provide the programming and not have to worry about deliverables, or using SAMA system, navigating all those things that our new providers, some in the world who are going through at this point. So we want to make it a little bit more foundational. In year 2, though, then we get into looking at the actual programmatic services. I believe that is my presentation. I pass it back over to you.
Thanks, Ken.
Well, I'd like to say thank you, for your time. I'd like to find out if there are any questions of us or of the staff, for what we have covered today, taking you through the goals and measurement, key measurement areas for the organization, as well as the RFPs and the program and how that was rolled out and where we ended with that. Are there any questions? All right. Yes, sir.
So, the previous essential services plan, that was defined in ordinance, when they developed Kids Hope Alliance. So, because it is defined in ordinance, how do you plan to change it going forward? Because I would think the ordinance has to change as well.
Very good question. Dr.
Yeah, I
Grant?
can answer that. So we are looking to hopefully eventually potentially change the ordinance. And I mentioned to you all too, there's some other things that just throughout the past 4 years, we've seen that worked and didn't that are just more probably trivial. But even with the new goals, all of our programs fit into the 5 essential service categories. So they're not gone or anything like that. And when we actually, our funding is in these 5 categories. So as they apply, we still categorize them into the categories. We're just really focusing now more on how do we meet these goals instead of simply just, is it after school or is it mental health? What are the goals we're gonna work towards?
So in other words, you're not gonna change the ordinance.
No, we would like to, but we have to, it has to go to the board and everything else. We just haven't had a chance to do that yet.
And you bit about city council.
Right.
We were doing this just prior to the last election and everything.
Yeah.
Everything was done, so we hadn't gotten to that point yet. Yes, ma'am, thank you.
You mentioned the need for a re-entry after a child goes into a detention program. So there's a need for it that's been identified. Is there anything that has started thereafter? Maybe that's a kind of question.
Yes, you mean programming?
I'm sorry.
For reentry?
That identified necessity is for children that are reintegrating from a detention center program. What programming are we looking at now for that?
Oh, well, what we did talk about on here is, our grants that we have in the Kids Hope Plan. So we actually do a lot of work with a partner in the building, Vicky Wader, which she's over here, she does a lot of work.
On the front end,
Yeah.
we're talking about the back end.
So for the RFPs that we put out, I don't know of any reassurance, we focus more on workforce development.
There's an FSCJ program that once, if they have been in the system, once they get out, it helps them to get trade skills. If they haven't gotten a GED, get a GED. That's probably our largest program, but we did get a couple that we applied for as well. Save Our Sons and some other ones like that. We can send you the list.
Oh.
Any other questions? Well, the last thing that I'd like to do prior to turning it over to Dr. Grass is, based on what you've learned today, are there topics that you think you'd like to hear more about over the next 12 months? Are there things that you want this leadership staff to bring to you so that you can learn more about it based on what it is we're doing here? Give you a second to think it through, and I know some of you have a lot of background in this area already. A couple of you have been on the board, so you know a lot of it. Some have been staff, but are there things? Yes.
Well, when I think about, you know, what's going on in Jacksonville with children. One of the things I wanna know, what is the state of our children? I mean, I'm not sure that we are getting the full picture of the youth in Jacksonville from, you know, what we're seeing from individual providers. So I would like to know, I mean, you know, what is the state of the children in Jacksonville? So over the course, as we go forward, that's something that, you know, I think would help us to really paint a picture of where we are. And then, you know, how are we gonna move that needle going forward?
Historically, we've had that, but I will make the state of the children.
Did you have something? And I think we actually had a presentation, from that same title, which I think to Cindy's point is critical. But one point that I would add is I'd love to hear more from our providers. Yeah, I think we sit in a U shape and we talk about what we do, but they're on the front lines. They're the ones who are delivering the services, and every single thing we do is designed to be able to bolster and amplify the work that they're doing. So, you know, how can we ensure that you ask us that question, what do we want to hear? What do they want to tell us? I think for the most part is how do we create the conduit for more of their dialogue and input in identifying what are the priorities that would be addressed.
That can definitely be done. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, and to add to that, you know, one of the things when you were going through the presentation and, you know, all the people that was involved in changing the essential services, one of the things I had in mind is, you know, I'm sure the staff was involved because they're out there with the providers on the front line. So, you know, how were they involved in this? And I think I would like to hear from them too, you know, as we go forward.
Okay.
When you were doing your presentation, there was a bullet that mentioned civic potential. Can you kind of elaborate what exactly?
Getting them involved in the community, you wanna?
So some of the programs we have, like the Mayor's Young Leaders Advisory Council, sorry, I was thinking of the acronym in my mind. But we have 2 students from each high school come together and we teach them really about civics, government organizations and things like that. That's not the only program, that's probably our signature program, but quite a few of the other programs get them into volunteering and to even mentoring other younger students. And so those are the kind of things that we do, but we can provide more of that too, more information on that.
Because one of the things, in the group of guys we talk about in the dialogue, JSO leadership, we always talk about how young people don't understand the impact they can have by learning about how their local government work and how them getting involved in it would change not only their future, but things around them. So something in that nature that would kind of empower them in that manner.
I want to add to that. We just were partnering recently with the council auditor's office on a program with Council Page. And so we're going to be sort of a liaison for that. It's going to be on our website, so we can kind of get that information out to the community as well as like group field trips to the city council office. But the Page program, we actually have a couple students recently in our after school programs who went and were able to participate as pages, sit up in the front and pass notes, go back and forth, passing notes, giving people's comments cards, and even take a picture with the council president. So we're trying to find ways where we can kind of help programmatically engage our students, and those 2 will be coming soon.
Yeah. I had a question about site visits. And I know we've talked about those with Kenneth and Celine, and I realize that can be with a lot of sites that you have.
Yes.
So I'll be interested to know how that's gonna be planned and how we do it. And I think I remember hearing that we can have our compadres with us.
Yes,
Is
so
that
we
true?
will ask our legal counsel when it comes to that.
So site visits, okay?
I think that's very important, you know, that we talked about that when we had our meeting, definitely.
The good thing, Copy, that they've provided to us is a list
Yeah.
coming up over the next several months, and here are the different programs that are out there if you've got the time to fit in. so that you can begin to think about it over the next 3 or 4 months. What are the sites that you can begin to think about going to, which is really been helpful.
And then the members have been able to share at the meeting which ones they've gone to, spend a little bit of time on that, so you'll hear from one another too.
Quick question, when we're surveying students and their responses, I'm just sort of curious, what does that look like? Is that a multiple choice kind of thing, or are they elaborating specifically in terms of?
So
they're
you're
like-
talking about Katie from the gap analysis and the listening to it. You wanna share
The
how?
students, talking to
how'd
the
you get the
students
student
and getting
information?
feedback from the students.
So with the students specifically, they were responded to a survey, so we put out a survey. I think there's sort of limited reach in getting to the students with it. If that goes to GCPS, it has to be through an IRB. So we reached out to students where possible. And then we also met with some students through, I think My Life was one of the groups that brought some students, and then a couple additional ones came to those, listening sessions, where we spent about 2.5 hours, talking to them about what would they change about the city, what do they love about the city, and that sort of information.
Yeah, I'll add to that, programmatically, a lot of our providers do their own surveys as well. I know after school programs as well as a lot of our other programs do satisfaction surveys. And some of them do a beginning of the year survey, a mid-year and a post. What I found is providers that actually look at those surveys, take that information, incorporate it, tend to be more successful, have more foot traffic. Some providers, and those who don't, I should say, you can see the difference. Because I've seen the surveys, and I know they did the surveys. Sometimes you don't see the implementation. But that's something we're working on with providers. We do have a quality team. And that could be for various reasons, right? You have a provider who is, again, the CEO, the programmatic person, the finance person, and they're just trying to keep the program going. Or just need the resources or the connections or the people, because the kids are asking for dance. They can't find a dance teacher. But to your point, not only those surveys, we do have providers who do it themselves.
Right. And that's where I see the importance of those site visits
Yeah.
to pretty much confirm.
Yeah.
Other feedback to the, some of the after-school programming that's provided is that the executive team actually had us go out and talk to the principals and the administrators in the schools too about what programs are good programs and the benefits that you derive from those programs versus others that they thought that they could improve. So we've given that feedback to them as well. Any other input on topics? With that, I thank you and I turn it back
Thanks so
over.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So normally, if going forward in most of our board meetings, we will use a consent agenda. And when we do that, then we have public comment at the beginning of the meeting. And since today we don't have a consent agenda, we're gonna wait and take public comment on each one of the items we bring up today, discuss it, and move on. First I'd like to do is just go ahead and get approval of the minutes, and if I could get someone to motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
You have a second? Here we have a second. And all in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we can move into our financial report, right?
Yes, so our director of finance, Jessica Pitts, unfortunately had jury duty. We were hoping she would not get selected, but she did in fact get selected. And so she couldn't be here with us today. So I've asked Shari Schuman, who is a consultant who works with us on finance as well, to step in, and her and I can kind of work on this. I did want to point out to the board, in the notebooks that we gave to you, I had included the packet from the city council, but I realized when I gave up the first one that it was the 22-23 packet. So we included the 23-24 here, so you have the updated one as well. And that's what city council went over whenever they approved our budget. Okay, sorry.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be here and sit in for Jessica this afternoon. What you have on page 8 is the first page of the financials, is the current budget as of, so let me start back, just so everybody understands what the fiscal year is for this organization. It matches the city of Jacksonville, and it goes from October 1st through September 30th. So we are only 15, 16 days into the new year. So as we go through, we'll show you reports that we'll provide that will have more meaning than they do potentially today. So that's one thing. The other thing, and I think it's been said a little bit already, is everything that's done by KHA, even though you're an independent board and you have more authority than other boards for the city and advisory committees, everything financially does have to go back through the city council and the mayor's process. And then everything is actually processed through city accounting. So we do all the work over here, but we use purchasing, city purchasing, we use city accounting. So sometimes you might say, well, why aren't those numbers done? Well, they're not done officially because it's going through the big boys over across the way, the big gals over there that are doing it. And for instance, their audit typically is not finished for 9 months, which means typically we don't have September 30th final numbers for about 6 months before we'll get something that we can say. We can give you preliminary, tentative, but they're not official until they're actually announced over there and opined by the auditors. So just to give you a little, you know, some of y'all are used to a little quicker with nonprofits and things like that. They have a little more control over. So with that, going back to what's on page 8, that is the fiscal year. It's a comparison of the year that just ended with the current year. I think the chairman, well, the sitting-in chairman today has stipulated how much additional dollars, and you see that at the bottom of the page that we got more than $9 million of additional funding. That was between some cost of living increases that we had given to the providers within the RFPs. It was also additional initiatives and advocacy programs that KHA had requested. And then on top of that, the city council gave another 6 direct service provider agreements. So the budget package that Sarah Lynn mentioned in here, the bottom number on what's called the Schedule M is $625,000 less than what's on this page because they ended up giving 6 additional contracts to Kids Hope Alliance. That's not even on top of what I think Sarah Lynn's going to talk about that will come out of some additional transition dollars. So it was a terrific year. This is a little more detailed of a budget. This isn't typically, except for when you go to approve the budget, we'll give you detail, but we wanted you to at least have an idea of the different categories that go into making up the budget. I will tell you that there's something called internal service charges. For those that might not be aware, those are things that KHA does not control. They're the amount of money we get charged for the general counsel's office, amount of money we get charged for information technology, and those types of facilities, those types of things. The other thing that might be a little a nuance for you is why Kids Hope Alliance has debt service. So the debt service is actually the building we're sitting in. So because the building was built for Kids Hope Alliance and the Don Brewer Center, the debt service for that building is reflected in the Kids Hope Alliance budget. Again, something that is placed there, we pay for it, we get funded for it, and then but we don't really control those dollars. All of these monies that are in here, the 54 million is funded by the city out of the general fund. None of these dollars or revenues, we don't have other additional revenues. The only other thing we have is interest earnings. So it's interest earnings and a transfer from the general fund that makes up how we fund this expenditure budget. I'm happy to answer any questions either today, as it's a lot of information to get, or I'm happy to ever sit down with you if anybody wants more of a financial tutorial. With that, if we go to page 9, this is a presentation of one of the pages that will be in a financial report that you would see. It shows you, again, you can see there's nuances how the budget comes over. So, but if you look at the current budget, that 54.8 million matches the budget that you saw on the first page. And this is all that has been expended to date because they're still really spending September monies. The reason we don't have a September report for you is because whatever we gave you really wouldn't be indicative of where we're going to end up. But as we go through and you meet November or December, what will happen is we'll show you the actual to date, the remaining budget, and we'll start giving you projections. As the year goes on, those projections get better so that we know where we're going to be at the end of the year. So that's just, this is really more for kind of what to expect in the future. And we'll do this also for the grants as well, which are on page 10, but there's been no activity. Some of those agreements are still being signed, but we wanted you to know all of the different grants that are being accounted for. And you'll see reports on as we go through the year, how they're being spent. But mostly just so you know, the grants and their award amounts and how much the city contributes to those. And then the last thing is the package that Sarah Lynn mentioned. It gives you a lot of information about the different trust funds. There are a couple different funds that Kids Hope Alliance has. There's a Travel Youth Trust Fund. There's another Kids Hope Alliance Trust Fund that the small providers go through. And it just gives you a little bit of information, reading information, explanatory of how those work. There is a additional amount, and I think it may come up in some discussion later, because we've got the ordinance attached for jump. I can't think of what it's.
Jacksonville Upward Mobility Program.
That one.
We need an acronym.
Huh?
We need an acronym book.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, for jump, those monies, you'll see on the first page 8, the $450,850, that's in a separate fund, a separate account. And that money went straight from the general fund over to that account. So it doesn't flow through the Kids of Hope Alliance monies. That's why it's separated. And we'll report on it separate because it's got its own rules, but yet it's going to be administered and managed by the Kids Hope Alliance.
Two areas, is general liability insurance and the dues and subscription. Just kind of just pique my interest in these things.
So there's 3 insurances that we get charged: workers' comp, which is up in the salaries and benefits; general liability insurance, which is for auto liability. Somebody comes into this building and they fall, or something happens from that type of liability, property insurance liability, but the liability part of it. And then miscellaneous insurance would be property insurance and the things like that. That's all run by risk management, and those numbers are provided to us.
KHA employees are not city employees.
KHA are city employees and they have city insurance. So these are, so what happens is the city is fully insured on some programs and self-insured on some programs, but then they divvy up that to all of the different departments. So like the sheriff's office, they would,
Did that charge?
yeah, all that vehicle insurance is for like the sheriff's office. A lot of that goes there. On the dues and subscriptions, that's just the subscriptions and the memberships that the Kids Hope Alliance has.
Oh, Sherry, I think I was a little thrown by the date of October 9th, Because I see that the budget appears to be the New Year's budget, is that correct? And so I was used to, you know, with financial reporting, you would report at the end of a specific period. So that would give you time to try to have some balance back to what the city. And so when I saw October 9th, so is that in the middle of the period?
It's the first 9 days. So the reason we did that was so that you could see some expenditures. Typically, if you meet on November 15th, you'll have an October 31st report.
Okay, so going forward.
You would, but this was just done because we weren't getting the September 30th numbers because they're not complete, because they're in flux. And we wanted to show you if that was all blank. So I'd asked Jessica to at least put something in there, and so it's the 9 days worth of data. But yes, I totally agree. Typically, we'll be at the end of the month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sherry. Those in here, boys. Okay, we're gonna move into our board action items now. And Dr. Grass, you're gonna take over the presentation.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So, I mentioned this to you all before. We have a few action items that we've, you know, we kind of worked on over the summer, and they're now before you. And the first one is for $750,000 to go to the United Way, as for a partnership for their Achievers for Life program. This is similar to the full service schools program, and that currently United Way, DCPS, and KHA all put in money, and then we fund this large citywide program together. With Achievers for Life, DCPS, and United Way have been putting in money, but KHA has not been a partner in that. It's shown great success, and actually Melanie, still here, yeah, still here. And she's gonna talk a little bit about what the program does. When we didn't mention this before, but when we actually go and request our budget, there's two things that we can request. Sorry, one is to keep our funding at the same service level. How much do we need? And it doesn't mean we have to keep the same exact amount, because from year to year, if there's inflation, we might need more money to do the same thing. So that's how we get some more dollars. The other way is that we can ask for enhancements. And so this year, as part of our enhancements, we asked for this money, and we indicated as to what it would go to, and it was approved in the budget. I actually provided that single page from the city council packet behind this, just so you could see where they mentioned it, and city council did approve this part of it. If this is approved, it would be a 1-year contract with up to 3 years of renewal to follow what we did in our RFPs. And the goal would be to execute this through a procurement exemption. We can do an exemption if the board approves, basically because of the nature of the work, because it's mental health. It can be sort of a sole source, if you will. And we can do that through an exemption, and then we can continue that contract for 4 years. So, Melanie, do you want to come and say a few words before we?
Thank you all. It's wonderful being with you this afternoon. I appreciate it. So Achievers for Life started in 2007. So it's been going on for a little while. And excuse me, it's based on the research by Dr. Robert Baldans out of Johns Hopkins University of the warning signs of children dropping out of school later in life. And what his research indicated was that middle school is a critical time for children during their journey through their elementary or high school years. And he identified 3 warning signs: attendance, behavior, and academic performance. So based on that research, United Way developed Achievers for Life in partnership with the school system. And we've got, you all have talked about families and the importance of families. So there's 2 components. There's students, and Communities in Schools does a terrific job of being in the schools, working with the students, working with the principals, and making sure that the students are connected and receiving support so that they can be successful academically. And then families. So Jewish Family and Community Services provides the family support. They're meeting with the families in their homes. They're meeting with them in community locations wherever it's convenient, and providing them not just case management, but also access to services so that they can be stable, so that those students can stay in their homes during their entire middle school year. And Serlin said it has been successful. So we've had
more than 7,500 students who have participated in Achievers for Life from the very beginning. And Duval County Public Schools has been an investor in the beginning along with United Way. United Way's investments have been more than $25 million over the last 17 years. And some of the outcomes. So talking about attendance, in this last most completed school year, 94% of the Achievers for Life students only missed 6 or fewer days of school. We had a GPA, an aggregated GPA of 2.87 for the Achievers for Life students. We had on-time promotion for 98% of the students, and then 99% of them had fewer than one or actually only one. 99% had fewer than one suspension, so they didn't have any suspensions at all. So when we started this work back in 2007, the graduation rate for Duval County, all students, was 66%. For African American students, it was 57%. Today, most recently, the graduation rate for African American students is up to 84%, and the overall graduation is at 86%. So we shrunk the disparity. Achievers for Life is not the only initiative. We are a significant initiative that contributed to those outcomes. So we really look forward to the Kids Hope Alliance becoming a co-investor in this work. It's been very successful, as we mentioned, and I've got one quote from a principal. So this is the principal of Highlands Middle School. We started out in 2 middle schools and we're now in 10 middle schools. And we talked about family support. There's also parent engagement as a component of Achievers for Life through the schools. And so this is Principal Mungan, and he said, without the invaluable and consistent support of Achievers for Life, my school would not execute as well on our outreach strategy to parents. Achievers for Life is a key element of Highlands Middle School parent engagement efforts, from parent nights to their consistent communication with families. The staff go above and beyond to support my team in the operations and overall culture and climate of our campus. So thank you. I mean, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We've also got we have some folks from Communities in Schools who are here, and Jewish Family and Community Services is also with us as well. So if you have any questions, we can answer those.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Well, let's continue through the process. Yeah. Great job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go ahead and get this motion out on the table and then we'll talk about it. We'll get a motion to do this or discuss this.
I move the Achievers for Life action item.
Did you second?
Second.
Second. Discussion?
Discussion is, thank you for providing this information. It was good reading. I know a lot about it before this movie started. I appreciate that.
Any other comments?
I just have a question. So is this, I mean, you said that it's a program that's been around since 2007. I know I've heard about it. So right now, I saw that it was already approved in the budget ordinance. So are we just to ratify this because it was already approved in the budget ordinance?
Right, the board still has to approve it. You cannot approve it.
Okay.
You can do something.
That was one of my questions. And then, you know, I guess another question was what providers would be working on the case management piece? Is it only, I think I heard you mention Jewish family.
So Jewish Family and Community Services does the family engagement side, so they're working with the families, and Communities and Schools works with the students.
Okay. And then it's a partnership where KHA is only contributing not only, but 750,000. So I'm assuming that you put in a lot of additional funds. So what's the total?
The total budget for the year is, I believe it's 2.1 plus.
My only question is, I know, and I'm familiar with Achievers for Life and certainly applaud the work that United Way is doing to lead this effort as a supplement to the school district and the other programs. I guess my only question would be, I know we had an option for it as a exemption versus a sole source, like, is that six one way, half of them the other? What is the best and most ideal outcome for us in this?
The ideal outcome would be that we get the procurement exemption, and I think we will. Because with an exemption, you can do a multi-year contract. If you do it as a sole source, which we could also do, you have to go back every single year and prove it as a sole source, and it's just more difficult contracting wise. Whereas the other one, you will still have the option to renew or not, regardless, you have to create a whole new contract.
Okay. Yeah, that was just my question.
Any other comments or any thoughts? On the board? Any public comments? on this item?
Here, back to community, so thank you, and we've had a outstanding partnership with Canada United Way. And the nice thing about this, these 10 little schools that we're talking about have after school programs as well. So those students get additional service in after school as well. It was a very effective program, and it's been a great partnership, and the principals love us. And I think, Cynthia, you mentioned earlier, what is the state of our children? Man, there's a lot going on. The evictions, the food desert, the hunger, all of these things. And so by working closely with United Way, now with KJ and others, Produce Family, and stabilize, we don't know how many families that we've had in hotels and that we had to get back to their homes to get stable. We know if they're not stable at home, that we cannot do the work that we do in the schools. And as a result of our work, the students are attending. So I thank you all for, doing today's.
Thank you.
Yes, Brian Snow, President of Housing with Sulzbacher. Just three quick comments. One is, I've been at Sulzbacher 20 years. I've had a chance to see all the great work from the Children's Commission up through Kids Hope Alliance. I want to say thank you to the board. Second, and it is a perfect lead up to something I was going to say. Any of the board members that have not been to Sulzbacher Village, we would love to have you come. We've been in existence 5 years now. As he mentioned, we have a holistic approach there to serving children and families, from pediatric clinic to trauma-informed early learning center to after-school program and affordable housing, all in one building. And so we would love to have you come check that out. And lastly, I know there's been a lot of transition, but I think you'll have great leadership here with Dr. Grass and Kenneth. I've had a chance to work on some initiatives with them, and so I think they're in great hands.
Good. Thank you.
Chris Atkins, I'm the program director for Achievers for Life at Jewish Family Community Services. I want to echo Mr. Baxton's comments that we've had a great relationship with United Way. And I think the big part of the Achievers for Life program is the collaboration between our great agencies that we do. We develop a relationship with the families at home and bridge that gap between the school and the day. Because a lot of times the problems are the home area is not stable. And what I can say is, before I came to this program and now being a part of this program, is that we have definitely bridged that gap. So that we can really make an impact, not just with this generation, but multi-generational. And so that is our focus, is we continue to bridge that gap, and we do it through the relationships we have with people in public here. And support we have from United Way and other organizations that we combine with to make sure that we combine the services that are out there to our families so they can take the steps they need to. So thank you for considering. Thank you.
And I think, what we've just heard is a great example of collaboration with our partners, and it's happening in the community, which is really outstanding. So kudos to all of you for that. Any other comments?
I was gonna say too, that this came out directly from our needs assessment gap analysis, that as you saw, one of the recommendations was to do more holistic services. And so what we found in talking to our partners was it was probably more ideal to expand a program that we knew was already doing that, but successful, rather than creating something totally different that we weren't sure of.
And question about the graduation rate, that 84 and 86%, is that just with this program or overall in Duval after COVID?
Overall.
I thought we lost so many students during schooling, or during COVID.
Okay, if there's not any more comments, let's take it up for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yes.
Great, yeah, one more. And I'm gonna ask our Director of Workforce Development, John Everett, to come up. But I'll give a little preface to this grant. So John's gonna talk a little bit about some of the work that he's been doing in this space. And I know, I just saw that we have 1 minute left in the board meeting, so I'm sorry about that. We'll be brief, but, what I wanted to say real quick was that, we talked a little bit earlier about fit for the organization as well. So we wanted to be upfront about this one. This grant, if we do secure it, will work on some workforce development, issues that are beyond youth. So above age 24. The way that KHA is able to be involved in this work is through the JUMP Jacksonville Upper Mobility Program that has landed at KHA. And so I actually did include that ordinance, and that's something I think I mentioned each of you, I just forgot to put it in that notebook as well, because it was separate than our other trust funds. And we highlighted the part saying that through the JUMP program, KHA is to apply for grants and other funds that would then go directly to that JUMP trust fund. And so that is a part of this. This is really being applied for through KHA, but for JUMP. And if we do secure it, we will ensure that we work with other partners like the Department's Office of Economic Investment and people like that who really work with adults and won't try to do all that ourselves.
Thank you. John Everett, Director of Workforce Development and Career and College Readiness. Good afternoon. Because I only have 30 seconds now, or 30. Sure, I'll make this. You take your time, Mike. So to echo what Dr. Grass mentioned, this is a significant opportunity for us as a city. The workforce development is fairly new. We've been doing the work for about 2.5 years. The department became official in January of 2023. As part of our efforts, we've been working with several entities within the city of Jacksonville: Baptist Health, UNF, JU, FSCJ, United Way, ECPS, Jacks USA, JPEP, ViStar, JTA, the Housing Authority, LIST, 904 Ward, Blue Zones, and Career Source in Northeast Florida, as part of a steering committee to kind of guide this work. Our initial focus was just on youth and young adults aged 16 and 24. Through focus groups, through hearing from our providers, we learned that there was a significant gap in some of the services that we were providing to youth and young adults. And what they were basically telling us is, we do a great job up until we turn 18. Once we turn 18, good luck. And we heard that from everybody. So how do we be more intentional about providing those services and supports to those young adults that are transitioning out of high school? As a part of that, when we talk about, well, how does that lead over into the family? We were beginning to see that a lot of our families were dealing with or coming from distressed communities. And that's what the EDA grant tends to focus on. KHA is set to partner with local workforce development leaders, career and college readiness organizations, and public and private entities to pursue the EDA's We Compete grant. The grant will provide significant investment in projects focused on connecting people to good jobs in persistently distressed communities. Persistently distressed communities is defined as communities where prime age employment significantly trails the national average. What you'll hear a lot is PAEG, which is the prime age employment gap, which is significantly high in certain pockets within Jacksonville. Interestingly, if you look at the history of it, everybody that's familiar with the history of Jacksonville in 1937, there was the whole redlining issue, right? Those communities are still dealing with the issues of impact from redlining, and we're still seeing that. So our goal is to kind of address those persistent issues by targeting, connecting folks in the economic side of mobility in these communities. So how does the grant work? The grant comes in 2 parts. The first part is the strategy. We've applied for both strategy and implementation. The strategy focus is 500K, and they run concurrently. So it'll be 500K for 2 years for the strategy. And then we'll have 5 years in the implementation side, and that's the most significant piece. If we receive it, it'll be a $20 million investment over the course of the next 5 years. We've had over 38 partners
both private and public that are partnering with us to do this work. And again, that's everybody from private business and industry to local nonprofits who are in this space. And again, the focus of this, to Dr. Grass's point, is targeting about 21,000, the impact is about 21,000 prime age working adults, and that's 25 to 50 or 54 years of age. However, the indirect benefit to youth, we're planning to touch or to impact at least 2,000 youth through this project as well. So that is essentially what the Recompete grant and the work and workforce development expands 16 to 24 within workforce development. Those are the two groups we're looking at, 16 to 24-year-olds, but then also prime age working adults, which are adults aged 25 to 54. Open to questions. Yes, ma'am.
I saw that the deadline for the grant was, October 5th.
Yes,
So that means you've already applied for it?
correct, correct.
And as part of one of the policies that we went over, if you do decide you don't want us to, we'll withdraw the application.
Yes.
We just have to get it in before the meeting.
We applied 2 days early. We're expecting to hear back by December, in regards to the strategy piece. And because EDA is trying to roll out this relatively quickly, that'll make you eligible to apply for the implementation piece. And we're hoping to hear back from that. We'll be able to apply for it in, January, February.
And so you mentioned that prime age, and what's the age that's prime age?
It's 20, it's considered.
I heard 25 to 54.
It's considered prime age working adult.
So we should be retired.
But to your point, the 25 to 54-year-olds within these particular pockets, within our community, are making well below the national average, even the average, the median income for Jacksonville. And the level of education is below an associate's degree.
And let me add to that, because we got progress in this space as well. We've been able to provide multiple pathways for our high school students through programs, but we have to take care of the parents as well. So a lot of our parents that we work with fall into that 25 to 50-year-old who need the resources and the jobs also to have a stable house.
Thank you.
I just think this is a significant investment for our community at $20 million for jobs. And, you know, when I saw the areas that have been underserved in the past, I just didn't know. I mean, I know you talked about areas that's red line, but do you have any targeted zip codes or anything that you plan to go into?
Yes, and I can send that information out to the board because obviously I can provide the actual grant application to you all. But it's based off of the census tract, and again, they're looking at the median income for those areas and then the educational level for those areas. But it's I think 38 separate census tracts that we're.
The government actually applied the place you have to go in. You can only go in that.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think my other comment is, you know, I saw that the JUMP legislation was placed under KHA, which I thought was, you know, so it's to target all ages. And so I just found that unusual because it is a youth serving organization, but then City Council placed the legislation here. And so with that said, where was I saw where JUMP replaced another piece of legislation. Where was this before in city government?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that. I can definitely get that for you. Because I don't recall off the top of my head whether the previous JUMP legislation, where they pulled it from.
Opportunity Bank, I think is what it replaced.
I think, I'll check this, but from my understanding, I think that was sort of like defunct, like it was an old thing that they really hadn't done in a long time. Rather than creating a new one, they just amended something that really wasn't passed. So I don't know that it was really anywhere, at least right now, but I can find out where it was initially when it was.
No, I think the program is valuable, and I happened to be at a legislative conference in DC a couple of weeks ago, and there was a panel of higher education presidents. And one of them said, which just struck me, that the greatest competitor is not another university, it's actually the workforce. So we're thinking about, hey, come to my college, come to my college. We've got students who are very much career minded and career focused, so having the ability at whatever age to introduce vocational opportunities, colleges are now having to think differently about how they are going to be able to attract students. So I think this is directly in line with where I think students.
Well, we've already kind of jumped the gun a little bit, without even putting the motion on the floor and having a conversation. It's all right, it's good conversation, but let's formalize it a little bit. So, thank you for a great presentation. We just said it just in case there is any other questions, but let's get a motion, for this proposal. We have a motion on the floor. Make a motion. All right, we have a motion. Second?
Second.
All right. And any other conversation, any other comments we have? Good questions, though. I like the questions, and we got some more information we need to get back to. Any other comments or thoughts?
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
while John is here, I do want to kind of give him some commendations for us as an agency being able to be eligible to apply for this. Typically, funding like this, you're sort of asked to apply. And the work that John has been doing with convening a lot of our local strategic partners really kind of positioned us well to get this funding. When you have entities like this willing to try to fund a city, they're looking at what structure and relationships are already in place. And when he already has DCPS, Chamber, he has our local colleges, universities, career source. He's intertwined all of these agencies, and you just need money. And so that looks very appealing when you're applying for something to have all of those strategic partners already at the table and have been meeting for several years. So kudos to John and for that. I just wanted to share that.
No, along that point, I did have one other question, because when I was doing my homework on this, reading it, you write a lot of information. I saw that Goodwill, you're already partnering with Goodwill on this. So how does that partnership with Goodwill work for this, or just with the?
Well, we're partnering with Goodwill in regards to, so we have a couple different programs that fall under the workforce. The Mayor's Youth at Work Partnership internship program is one of those programs. Goodwill facilitates the operational side of Mayor's Youth at Work Partnership internship program. Are they a part of our strategy for Recompete? Correct, but there's several other organizations as well that are a part of that Recompete implementation strategy. And again, the goal of Recompete wasn't to recreate the wheel. It was really to go in and figure out who's doing what work in the space of workforce development in these distressed communities, and was best positioned to kind of elevate the existing work or be creative. And we have some folks that were doing something innovative to kind of look at infusing some investment in those places as well.
So this is not a pass-through that's gonna come to KHA and then go to Goodwill. Other agencies will be able to apply.
Yes, well, we have certain agencies written into the Recompete plan. Goodwill is one of those agencies. And then we'll be able to look at potentially putting out RFPs as well.
Okay.
And I can share the actual implementation plan with everyone that has the details, again, of the strategy and then the actual plan itself, because it's several private and public partnerships that have been, we met with, like I said, over 38 individual entities in preparation for the proposal.
Are we the only community, are other communities all around the country that are doing this as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We were approached by the Walton Family Foundation. To Kenneth's point, we convened what's termed the Mayor's Youth at Work Partnership Steering Committee, as well as the Jacksonville Workforce Innovations Network for a while now. And we were approached by the Walton Family Foundation. They provided support to apply for federal grants, understanding that certain cities don't have the capacity to actually to put forth the work that's actually needed. To take advantage of the historic funding that's coming through the federal government. So we were fortunate in that respect. They saw that we already had existing partnerships, and they provided the necessary TA for us, which made it possible for us to apply for this grant in a very short turnaround, which was unprecedented.
Any other questions of the board?
Yeah, more than 30 seconds.
You did.
Yeah.
It's well worth it. Yeah. All right. You did a great job. If there's not any more questions of the board, any public comments, questions? Okay, let's just take it for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? John, great job, buddy. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving to the next category, and that is, discussion around the nominating committee, which is gonna be for officers and for our committees. And so, as it stands now, we need to kind of go through this process and decide how we want to approach it. Since there are no officers in place, and we need to elect officers, we can either have the nominating committee be the full board, or we can do, as we've done in the past, a subcommittee off to the side from our group, could be 2 or 3 of the board members that will work on getting a cast to present to the next board meeting of those who have an interest in serving in a leadership position. And what I can do real quick, we're running out of time here, but just give a real brief description of kind of what the expectations are for the officers as well as the committee. The chair shall preside at all meetings of KHA. The chair shall designate from time to time such special committees as the chair deems appropriate, and shall designate the subject matter assigned each committee for consideration. The chair will appoint chairs for each committee, designate the members of each committee. The chair will also serve as the board's representative to the city council, media, and any other public and or private organization. Vice chair shall perform the duties as assigned by the chair. In the event the chair is absent, the vice chair shall exercise all functions of the chair. Treasurer will chair finance committee and bring recommendations to the full board regarding all fiscal matters. Secretary KJ staff shall be responsible for keeping reasonable minutes for each board meeting in accordance with the Florida law, including committee, subcommittee meetings, and task force meetings. The secretary shall review and approve the minutes prior to the board meeting for board approval and sign off on all board action items. So I guess maybe you can take, who would like to volunteer to be on this committee, or do we want to take as a full board to make recommendations at the next board meeting?
So in the past, we've had a committee.
Yeah, in the past, we had, committee, that did that. And then the committee would have, working with the staff, find out which of the members of the board would like to have, their name in the hat for chair, vice chair, treasury and secretary. And then we'll be ready at the next board meeting to vote. So we can want to do 1 or 2 ways. We can, nominate committee or as a group. Any preference, thoughts?
I think we work out as a small group. We don't know each other well enough to probably do it collectively.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, just work out 2 people, 3 people, don't know the rest of them.
True. Is that good with everybody? Sounds a good idea to me since it's new. So that's what we'll do. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Like that all approved too. Okay, so we'll do that. And then, so, when's our next board meeting?
We have not determined that
Okay,
yet.
so we need to determine that.
Yeah.
So before we leave, we need to determine that, and then between now and then, so we'll have folks that can submit in, you guys can communicate, who the nominees would be. Once decided, let them know that the members should think about it, if they're interested in any other officer positions, what Dr. Kress just talked about, okay? Slate of officers to vote with the next committee. So the committees will then be comprised of governance and finance. And so governance committees responsible for ongoing review, recommendations to enhance the quality and future viability of the board of directors. The governance committee shall review, make recommendations regarding board assessments, CEO evaluations, review of policies related to governance matters, grant requests for submission, program proposals. So in other words, our request for proposals, so sole source. Yeah, and so the governance committee, and for example, if you look back on page 26 of the last proposal that we had with John on the U.S. economic development. What we've got, and that was developed through our governance committee, Dr. Darby, I had asked her when I was board chair the governor's chair, to really come up with a really good streamlined grant request application that we work with the staff on. And so you'll see before every governance meeting, and what happens, and I think this has been really powerful for us, governance will review all of the proposals, all of the grants that are coming forward, any action item that we have will go through governance typically first. And then will also be reviewed by the finance committee. Finance committee will get this similar proposal. But what I like about this is we will have a checklist of all the important questions. In other words, we get to that point, is RFP that's being considered, do we need to have a match? Are there any other programs in the community that are already doing this work because we don't want to compete? So if there are folks out there, we need to know that as well. And so there's a lot of good questions. These committees can modify, add to as we develop along. So that would be the governance committee. Finance committee responsible for ongoing review, recommendation of financial functions, annual budget, financial statements, review of policies, grant requests. And so once again, those of you that are, have an interest, and we can all be, we can have this the whole board split up, and part of it could be on finance, part of it could be on governance. I think just as my experience as the board chair may not want to think about being on one of those committees because it's already going to be a lot going on there. Vice chair we've typically had is governance chair. That's typically how we've had. That's what we consider as well. Want to see anything, Dr. Grass, that you think of? So then, I guess the next thing we need to determine is the next meeting.
Yes.
date.
So probably the best thing to do would be to have a meeting that would be just our nominated committee meeting. It'd be everybody, but we'll do it, you know, a short 30, 45 minute, and that'll be our only topic to discuss. So, I think we can do one or two ways to decide now, or Deborah can send out a doodle like we did before. It might be easier to take the time, but probably that meeting we should try to have in the next week or two. So y'all can have a slate of officers created, and then we'll have to vote on those again as your next meeting, after that.
Yeah, that's good. Does that work with everyone? I mean, I think it's really important we get our officers in place and our committees, so I think if we can do that next week, 2 weeks, Deborah. By the way, Deborah, everybody's had a chance to meet Deborah. She's been doing a fantastic job. You'll get to know her real well. She's really good about getting information out and helping us all get to, you know, places that we can go to do visits. And also, Deborah, thank you for that. But you could help us over the next week, 2 weeks. That would be fantastic.
The other thing to mention with site visits, what Deborah will also do is we try to go through all the different sites. So at some point, each site could have a visit from a board member. You yourself probably won't be able to go visit all because there's just so many, but that way everyone gets a chance to have a board member come to them. And so she'll send a list of maybe like 10 different sites, what days and times, and then people can sign up. And even if you sign up to the same one, we might put you in separate days, that kind of thing, but she'll take care of that for you. And it's really kind of usually based on what your availability is. If you really want to see something and it's not on there, let us know too. You know, it's just, we try to put together something so it's not like you're looking at 200 different things every single month. We kind of pare them down to about 10. So we'll send all that, just since we don't have a lot of time left today, via email. So look for that email in the next 48 hours or so with the survey on the times for the nominating committee and then for your site visit sign up. And then when we have that nominating committee, we'll have a little more time at that point. We can figure out if we want to do our board meeting, if we want it to be a week later, 2 weeks later, well, whatever you all prefer. Anything else to do with that? You want to say?
No, we're good.
Okay. So I'm so sorry that was over time, but I did want to give a quick report, and I won't read everything that I prepared, like I can send some of this out in an email. But some of the great highlights that I wanted to share with you are that, as you all may be aware, our mayor did hold back $25 million under the line in the budget this year that she could then disperse at a later date to meet the needs of the city. And so of that 25 million, KHA will be receiving an additional $6 million. So that's great. And I was going to read to you all what that $6 million will be designated for. Quite a few of these things were, in the past 3 months, I've been working very closely with the mayor's office and really just been asking what it is that we need. Some of them are things that they were really interested in, like literacy, so we came up with those programs. So we'll be getting 1.9, and I should say this does have to go through quite a few processes. So it first goes to a mayor's budget review committee, then it goes to city council before it's actually passed. But it has been vetted through city council already, so we do have a really good feeling that it will all go forward. But $1.9 million will be for more after school and summer slots. We did find that we have quite a few waiting lists, and some of that money can also be spent on enhanced security at some of those sites who have a large amount of students. $1.75 million will be for a literacy program. Part of that will go to get books out to students. Part of it will be training and coaching for after school providers in literacy. And the other part, I forget what the third one was, for that literacy component, but I'll send this all out to you. There's $150,000 for a Jacksonville journey, basically a similar, gap analysis and needs assessment. And that would take place through Kids Hope Alliance as well. $100,000 for a cultural arts program, which will provide transportation to students to theater performances, different things of that nature. To your point, Mr. Tranquil, there will be $170,000 for a civic engagement program. This is one that came out of one of the transition committees, and the way it reads, and I don't know a lot about it right now, what it came to us to say was to recreate something like the American Legion had. I guess they have a national model that brings boys and girls separately to learn about government and things of that nature. So I think the mayor wants to kind of base it on that program. $1.25 million additional for the Mayor's Youth at Work Partnership Program, which provides internships. And that 1.25, what they really want to do is bulk up our summer portion of that. So try to at least double the amount of kids that we get internships for the summer now, next year. $250,000 also for literacy, and this is for the Mayor's Literacy Challenge. So you're going to see more coming out, but we're really fortunate in that our new mayor, one of her big pillars is literacy. And so she's going to be doing a challenge where it'll get kicked off on January 20th at our Everbank Stadium. We're hoping to have about 5,000 to 6,000 kids there. There'll be booths, there'll be book giveaways. And then from that, you're going to do a challenge like with an app for how many books families read, and then throughout the year, they'll actually get prizes and things of that nature. So this will include the marketing for that, the books, and then the other thing that we're really excited about is creating a bookmobile that will then be operated in conjunction with KHA and the library. I don't know all the details yet about how we'll drive it around and all that. It's more of a concept at this point, but KHA, actually JCC did have a bookmobile in the past, so it's not a new concept to us, but we're really excited. And some of this stuff too will be done with some other foundations. We already have some additional funding coming in. $430,000 for pediatric mental health as well. And this is for those providers that take Medicaid, but the Medicaid doesn't quite cover some of the services that children need, like mental health, case management, but provide some supplemental funding for that. So in total, it's $6 million additional, which will bring our programming budget up to $54.5 million, which from the start, when KHA started, is an additional $25 million. So we're really excited about the reach that we're going to be able to achieve with this. And I think it's just great. I don't know. I want to give Mayor Deegan a round of applause. So thank you to her. Nobody's here from her office right now. They were here earlier, but that's great news. The other news I wanted to make sure you all were, and I can send you an invite as well, is that on November 13th, one of the things that our new council president, Dr. Ron Salem, has started is having quarterly meetings with our city council and the Duval County Public Schools School Board. And so at their next meeting, which is November 13th, it'll be focused on KHA. And so I'll be co-presenting with Dr. Krisner on our programs, our collaboration, and we're really excited about that. And we'll have a few of our providers present as well. Yes. And then finally, again, there's more things to say here that I can send out in an email, but we did also just get another grant that was not on our current Schedule M for a children's mental health initiative. That's one the board has voted on previously, and that's $1 million a year over the next 4 years. As Kenneth and we've all mentioned, the staff has been doing a really phenomenal job. And so I just want to thank all of the staff for all the hard work. This has probably been one of our biggest years as far as like the amount of work that we've done at one time. It's been a huge challenge, but everyone has really stepped up their game, and I just so appreciate all that everyone's done. We're really excited about the future. So thank you all so much, and looking forward to working with you more.
And also, the board, I'd like to say we've got one of our board members, Meredith Shortran Frisch, had a health issue today, couldn't be with us, but incredible. You're gonna love her when you have a chance to meet her, and she's just gonna be a great asset. And so, Meredith, if you're listening to me, we want to say hi and welcome you as well. Thank you.
I'm here. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody. I'd much rather be there. That's for sure.
Yes, sir.
Quick question, Sarah, on those
Yes.
literacy initiatives, do we know of any boundaries or potential boundaries? I'm very serious.
I know.
That could be potentially placed on selection of
Are we allowed to give out?
of the literature material.
So those who will be purchasing the books from already work with the district, so they're familiar with the list of what can and cannot be given out. So yeah, we should still follow that list simply because we don't want to get our government in any kind of trouble either.
The 1.25 for Mayors at Work program, is that funded or earmarked for Goodwill, or are we looking at other providers?
So right now, that was actually given to Goodwill through an RFP. They won that competitively. So for this summer, it will go to Goodwill because they run the program for us. However, and they're aware that that's going to go out to RFP again for the next year. They can again bid on it, but we are redoing the RFP because we have a new mayor. She wants to continue the program that has her name on it. So for this summer, it will go to them, but then in subsequent years, it may be another provider.
Summer of 24.
Right, correct.
Thank you.
And so then you're gonna send all that information out on all that additional funding?
Were there any other public comments as we close? You, those in the audience, thank all of you for being with us today. Yes.
Hi, my name is Harlan Meredith. I'm the program manager for the Mayors Youth at Work Partnership. And I really just want to say thank you to everyone in this room for all of the support that we've had over the years for this program. We've seen exponential growth, and we've seen so much interest from our students, and the need is there and the interest is there. And we're really excited about the work we've been able to do. We saw applications go from around 300 students per summer, go up to over 500 students this summer. And once again, for this fall, we normally get around 150 applications, and we have close to 400 applications for this fall. We're running our largest fall session yet, and from the surveys that we're doing, we're seeing that students are feeling like it's preparing them better for the workforce, and then that's being echoed by their supervisors who are actually working on a daily basis. Just last week, we had a supervisor who had a student for 3 sessions in his final session, and he could not even explain the difference in that student. He said he was looking on the eyes when he first came to them, and now he's up in front of the board, like executive members making presentations and pitching his own ideas. And he feels like the student is gonna go so far in the future. And it's students like that, examples like that, there's a reason why, right? There's reasons that we're doing this work, and we're so grateful to be a part of this. So thank you.
Great to hear. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you. Unless we have anything else?
Yeah.